All right, back in business.
Back in business, brother.
Let me ask you, what do you think it was about the JVC force that has kept you guys relevant for over 30 years?
Definitely the people. Definitely the people. JVC Force has a special brand of fans, um, which again, saying that you're from Strong Island is the brand that the people has carried alone, and the feeling of, you know what, having somebody to envy where you come from finally. Look, your city's making noise hip hop wise. People starting to realize now, right, that the prettiest girls don't live in Queens. Long Island girls is pretty and they got houses and they live by the beach. Saying that you from Strong Island now, the city is like, hey, I'm gonna go to Long Island. It started getting recognized, structural wise, people was like, look, professionally, look, if I'm gonna live in the city, oh, I'm sorry, if I'm gonna work in the city, I'm gonna buy a house in either Long Island or I'm gonna buy a house in Westchester County. Now all of a sudden, people didn't want their main life to be in a Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, or Queens. If they had the opportunity to go out to a Long Island, to the suburbs, and have a driveway and a yard, a little 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, or even have it upstate New York, they were going, and that's how these areas got populated, with the black folks and stuff. They seen it as a finer investment, But again, when people say Strong Island, and the song plays, and the words to the song, and it just the one there's one line in the song, the living in CI, who the hell am I? Again, nobody ever knows except for the people of Central Islip and Brentwood, especially, particularly, the pride that we felt all through life. When people sold homes, and again, I want to say everything ain't all good in Long Island. Long Island is a place still that black people and Latino people, which live like, one, can't buy a house in 80% of Long Island because of the racial equality still jumping. So it's not all good all the time. But the way we ended up in those areas, you know what I mean? And growing up, these were the only times in life that your parents, and even to now in life, that you say, hey, I live on a block and I know my neighbors. People don't know each other no more. But back then, you were allowed in anybody's house because everybody's parents cared. Life was differently structured on Long Island. It was differently structured on Long Island. People's parents took care of other people's kids when they were in their house because it was part of the dream. There was no nonsense going on. Our parents had demanded that we become progressive. And as a result of it, we did. People say, hey, you know what? I'm from Islip, or I'm from here and there in the surrounding areas. And when you say I'm from Central Islip and they kind of got their nose up, I mean, to hell. So again, Strong Island is a song that no matter what song or group or anybody made from Long Island, it's the song that tags on the pride, you know?
Do you think the JVC force was ahead of their time?
Yeah, definitely. At the time or any time that I was ever rhyming, I wouldn't know it because I was always a kid that admired these big groups. So I wouldn't know it, but I do definitely think so. And I definitely always think so that as a result of it, as a group, we didn't go as far as we could have went because I don't think that the radio and stuff like that was ready for what the people in the streets had wanted. The radio wasn't ready for hip hop with limited choruses and multi scratches like that, out of control, scratch reverbs, and they weren't ready for that. The radio was real structured. You know what I mean? You know, radio always took pride in like they would play some stuff, but if you wanted the real stuff, it wasn't gonna come on until like after like 9 o'clock in New York City on a Friday and a Saturday night. Or big shouts out to Long Island's own WBAU, Dr. Dre, the legendary. That's Ed Lover's Dr. Dre, WBAU and stuff like Hofstra University with Jeff Force and stuff. It wasn't until those college stations on Long Island, Stony Brook Radio, started playing the hip hop shows during the week. So you could turn the radio on in Long Island and all you can get it. But all through the city and everything, I mean, the major stations, they weren't hitting it. You weren't hearing the music that you wanted to hear until those rap shows came on. So, you know.
Years later, your music is still influencing the younger generation. You found Craig Mack sampling some of your music. Can you take us back to a young Craig Mack and how your music was sampled on his debut album?
Yeah. Craig Mack, rest in peace, was a beautiful soul for everybody in CI. And I know sometimes, to the world, you're a hip hop artist and the world can only see what they can see. But to Long Island, and to the people that knew Craig Mack was one of the most beautiful souls as a dude that, people can imagine and know. Craig was young. Craig always had a strong, strong passion for music. Craig used to ride his bike when he was young to my house every day because I had a studio at the time. We'd be recording. I'd be messing around with some other groups around the area. Big up to my boy up in CI too, 50 grand. I had a group, Dollar and Cents. And every time me and 50 and E-Sex was in the studio, the music would be bumping out into the street. And Craig Mack, faithfully knowing that we would be in the studio all the time, he would pull up by the studio window on his 10-speed. This went on for years and years and years. And like I say, Craig, coming out of Long Island was like everybody else. He began working with a friend of mine that actually taught me how to sample when I brought my equipment, Lenny Ace Morrow. And, Lenny is a beast in the studio and has a lot of platinum plaques. And Lenny began working with Craig. And, Craig, with the help of Diamond J, actually before that, Diamond J and Craig had did a song called Get Retarded that I was sitting there watching them, rehearse and record. But so big up to Diamond J because, Diamond J was a beast back then too, and so nasty on the turntables. But when Lenny Ace Morrow started working with Craig, Craig had a deal with Bad Boy. And once he got that deal, we had a song on our album which was called Deja Vu. And at the time, it was a sample with the Bohannon Stop and Go. And people used to listen to music back then. And you could have told somebody, hey, this is Bohannon Stop and Go. But if the beat didn't come on right as soon as the record started, that song has a lot of different things going on before it would start, a little rhythm and strings but no beat. So JVC, we had sampled the Bohannon Stop and Go for our song Deja Vu. And Craig for about a year, and again, while he was in the studio with Lenny and stuff, he said, I need that song for my introduction, my album. And again, Craig is somebody who he's such a good guy that, you just tell Craig, hey, you know what? Do what you got to do. It's all good. So, Craig came to the house, took the album, ended up sampling it, and went to the studio that night, and I had heard it. And I said to myself, I said, yeah, I said, this is cool. I said, do what you got to do and stuff. So this ended up that sample off of our album ended up being the introduction to his project Funk the World. And once again, like I say, big shout outs to DJs like Diamond J, and big shout outs to producers like Lenny Ace Morrow, because Lenny Ace Morrow as a producer was always somebody also that he was a straight up dude. Um, and I promise you, for Craig Mack to be where he was, Lenny Morrow in the studio was a beast, and he put in a lot of hours with Craig. I think the world knows Craig for what he is lyrically, but the most time that was put into Craig in the studio, developing that funk style, was with Lenny Ace Morrow.
This conversation has been a lot about producers, but unfortunately, you guys never did get to work with any. Were there any opportunities that you guys had, and why didn't the JVC Force work with any other producers?
Well, the thing is that around the time of 88 to 92, when JVC was doing what they were doing, by 92, again, as we had the conversation about the group being ahead of its time, we were kind of ahead of our time with big tracks, with the production of that also. And, you know, having the DeBarge, the Sesame Street, the piano fusion, and, you know, all of that stuff. You know, the little wah 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 was from the Muppets. You know, so we were already a little ahead of our time, I believe, on the production. Um, so in the new time, when we would meet a producer and they would say, "Hey, we got these beats and stuff," at times we felt like they were good, but it was also a time in hip hop to where producers wanted a whole bunch of money for these beats, and we weren't going to pay that kind of budget for a beat on a label that we weren't going to pay that kind of money for that to come out of our budget on a label that, you know, wasn't probably doing all they can or agreeing with everything. The reason for it within the early years was pretty much that hip hop was lucky where it came through a sample friendly era. And producers at that time, you know, they went, "Hey, I'm a producer. I got these 10 songs on this cassette. I loop these beats. Take a listen." JVC was a crew, and Kirk Cazal being the main reason as the DJ and the person who does the beats. It was a smart idea at that time to feel like, I get it that you have a name on you and you just did so and so group, but why should I turn around and pay you $4,000 for sampling substitution? So I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that even when we were in high school and we were doing parties and DJing and stuff, even then we had a contract as teenagers, because we were taking $200 and $300 from people to do parties in New York as teenagers in high school, and we were doing well. So we always had a structure. We had a crew that paid dues so we could get the things we wanted. And, you know, so you know, we were used to that structure. And I think that we never were going to go ahead and accept anything other than that within ourselves. But, you know, times, you know.
How do you feel about the younger generation claiming Strong Island?
I feel like I listen to a lot of documentaries. I look at a lot of things, and I feel like the younger generation has a rendition of Strong Island. I don't feel like they know where the name comes from. JVC Force is not a group that, again, um, everybody is going to turn around and know. We're almost like a secret weapon group, I've been told. In the Midwest, I got a partner in Chicago who he's made a statement to me, and he said, if I want to test anybody hip hop skills, I ask them if they know who JVC Force is. You see, we're not going to get the same response from somebody that's going to say, "Hey, yeah, I know a Rakim and I know a Public Enemy. You know JVC Force? What song do they sing?" The JVC fans are like unique. There's not as much of us, We're loyal. And if you come from Strong Island, or you come from anywhere else worldwide or any borough or city, you love that song because it made you feel like you was from Long Island. But we are not the kind of group, again, that will get the kind of recognition. So when it comes to these younger kids, I understand they don't know the history of hip hop and stuff like that. It doesn't trouble me too much that they actually don't know. I respect their music and their creativity and stuff like that. But for what we do in regards to JVC Force, um, it's for the people who love the music and stuff like that. I look at the kids now like they can use a little more education when it comes to like the origin and the roots of hip hop. But again, as life change, there's no guarantee that you're going to get that. See, look, there's a fight with them where we don't understand them musically, but again, politics wise of what's going on now with them fighting for rights, they're fighting one hell of a great fight. I think the way that they're fighting and the way that it's going down and what they're creating, I think is shocking to a lot of people. You know, but the music is their expression. Long Island is somewhere that they grow up on too, and it's their part to turn around and if they want to know the history of it and stuff like that. But I don't knock them, but I noticed that a lot of the younger kids and stuff, they're like, I'm from Strong Island, but they really don't have the history of where it's coming from. But again, the normal hip hop game, young kids now, they generally don't know the history before Jay-Z or a Biggie or Tupac, or they don't know the history before that. It stops after Puffy. And then yeah, they might have heard of a couple of artists, but they don't know the history. I think in hip hop in general, I think if somebody turns around and they're going to take big money from a label and stuff like that, they need to turn around and know at least the hip hop history and represent hip hop well. It's a certain amount of pride that comes with an artist from the old school because we sit back and understand that we formed something. There's a certain part of us that feel that the art form that we have formed has been trampled on and trashed. And, there's a lot of songs that I don't like because I don't like the content, because I don't understand how I could see parents even sometimes in the South, like listening to the music with their kids in the car and the artist is just cussing up a storm. Life as I knew it, and life as the people in Long Island knew it, was you wasn't getting in your parents' conversation without getting smacked. You wasn't riding down in the street, and you wasn't riding in the street in the car with your parents or your mother listening to some hip hop or any song with cussing or vulgarity because you as a person had a certain kind of pride and didn't want to disrespect your parents. See, kids now, they don't fear their parents. So I do respect everything that the young folks are doing, but I think my feeling towards the whole thing is just towards the artistry and the labels and the way things are structured. Like, I understand as a person, and I feel as a person that sometimes they give somebody a lot of money to turn around and represent something. And that person takes that money because they feel like, oh, yeah, I'm rich. But the label or whoever else or the powers that may be is sitting there using you as a damn stick figure to turn around and have half the hood admiring your ignorance and everything else that you want to turn around and offer. Because, yeah, you could rap, but when they ask you about a current event, you don't know or you can't speak. It's a lot of things that I think I just feel like internally about the game. And I feel like the game got to come with grooming. Back then when we were making hip hop, every rap group that somebody loved had an image.